Good evening. Moscow has dismissed speculation that President Gorbachev is about to step down. A spokesman for Mr. Gorbachev says the Soviet leader wants to first ensure that the political changes taking place in the country are carried out legally. The statement came as 5 Central Asian republics declared their intention to join a new Commonwealth of states earlier formed by Russia, the Ukraine and Belarus.
The 5 Central Asian republics agreed to join after meeting in Ashgabat, but with one proviso, that they too be considered founding members of this new Commonwealth. Already Boris Yeltsin had given his assurances that would be the case. So Russia, Belarus and the Ukraine will be joined by Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan and Turkmenistan. According to Yeltsin, Armenia too will join. Azerbaijan is studying the proposal, as is Georgia. Moldova too is considering joining. Boris Yeltsin met with Moldovan leaders to discuss details of the Commonwealth and allay any concerns. For Yeltsin, there is no looking back.
As far as the union structures are concerned, the government agencies are concerned, the so-called central authorities are concerned, we don't recognize them anymore, and their decisions are not valid in the territory of the Russian Federation.
All this will move Mikhail Gorbachev a step closer to resignation. He says he will wait until the Supreme Soviet meets to formally acknowledge the new structure, and that he has no regrets.
In my lifetime, I have happened to undertake a great cause, and I don't think I have wasted my life.
That was a matter of debate with many out in the streets. Some, angry with their current lot in life, blamed Gorbachev.
Senior officials of major Western financial institutions are meeting in London tonight to consider further emergency assistance to Moscow. And in Washington, officials have begun organizing an international conference for next month in a bid to avert a looming food crisis in the Soviet Union.
Scenes of winter hardship and political chaos in the former Soviet Union have prompted the Bush administration to gear up an aid program that could be on the scale of the post-World War II Marshall Plan.
These people must be able to see that Democrats and reformers can deliver the goods, that there is some cause for hope, some sign that life will get better.
The U.S. plans to mobilize a new international coalition to help the Soviets. It will include the world's wealthy industrialized nations and the rich Gulf states the Soviets joined against Iraq. An international conference will be held in Washington in a few weeks to split the costs of Soviet aid.
The wreckage of communism is too large for any one nation to go it alone or to try and do everything.
Saudi Arabia's efficient oil industry, for instance, could teach the Russians how to extract more than the tiny fraction of Kazakhstan's vast oil resources, which now provide winter heating. The U.S. is immediately doubling its shipments of medical supplies. The Pentagon will send leftover Desert Storm meals, cots, and blankets. Another $100 million in food aid approved by Congress will be dispatched. U.S. grain grants will rise beyond the $165 million previously approved. The biggest U.S. contribution may be the $400 million Congress has designated to help dismantle Soviet nuclear weapons.
North and South Korea have pledged to work towards making their respective territories nuclear-free. The statement came as the 2 Korean states signed an accord ending 4 decades of hostility. The historic agreement was reached after talks in Seoul between delegates from both sides. Included in the document are provisions for arms reduction and talks on eventual reunification, but no mention is made on how the Korean peninsula could be turned into a nuclear-free zone. The Indian Supreme Court has ordered the release of scores of Tibetans jailed for protesting against the visit to New Delhi by Chinese Premier Li Peng, but the ruling doesn't cover about 130 people considered by police as instigators of violence. The development came as China and India agreed to resume cross-border talks suspended since they engaged in a brief war 3 decades ago. Mr. Li and the Indian Prime Minister Narasimha Rao agreed at the second and last round of their talks in the Indian capital to look for a fair solution to the frontier conflict. The 2 leaders also agreed to hold regular meetings between their armies to ensure peace on their long and rugged border. Liberal legislators are set to push for a vote for a new standing committee during tomorrow's special meeting in Lechko. Bernard Lowe reports.
Liberal legislator Martin Lee vows something will come out of tomorrow's in-house meeting.
But I just don't know what will happen tomorrow. Maybe there will be some discussion first on the merits or demerits of each particular proposal, and then maybe then lengthy discussions, or maybe people will simply say, all right, let's put the matter to a vote, in which case it can be resolved quickly.
The Conservative faction is backing a proposal by Ronald R. Cooley to keep the ad hoc committee system with few changes. They say the standing committee proposal, as advocated by Dr. Leung Chi-hung, would deny legislators the flexibility to join committees reflecting their interests. But Mr. Lee says this is not an improvement.
So Mr. Cully then put forward his new proposal, which represents a major step backwards, because there is very little difference between his proposal and what is happening already today.
The Liberals argue that effective work can only be done by legislators with sufficient background in a particular area. The separation of power between EXCO and LegCo is also a point of contention. Under the present system, most ad hoc groups are convened by LegCo members who are also EXCO members. Thus, the same people who help draft policies in EXCO often end up scrutinizing them. Such lack of check and balance, the Liberals say, must end.
The Deputy Director of China's Hong Kong and Macau Affairs Office, Chen Ziying, has rejected claims that Beijing doesn't understand how the Legislative Council operates. Carolyn Libby reports.
Although Beijing doesn't recognize the Legislative Council, Mr. Chen says China understands it perfectly. But as the dispute about the LegCo standing committees heats up, councillors say Beijing doesn't realize the improvements they're trying to make. But Mr. Chen insists he's not the one that's confused. He says the problem lies with some people in Hong Kong. He says councillors understand there are restrictions on the Legislative Council's power, but some of them are trying to bend the rules.
香港呢，从来以这个行政从来是行政主导的从来是行政主导的嘛。那么政策是这个政府制定的嘛，是吧？那么也正是由于呢，香港从来是如此，所以我们在制定香港特别行政区基本法的时候呢，就以这个事实为依据嘛。这个问题呢，在我来讲是清楚的。也可能我们这个香港的这个朋友也可能某些人他不清楚。
The territory's business leaders got better treatment, with Mr. Chen assuring them that China wouldn't interfere with their interests after 1997. Later, Mr. Chen tried to assure workers that Beijing wouldn't ignore their concerns either. He told the Secretary for Education and Manpower, John Chan, that when the labor importation scheme resumes, Beijing will prevent a major influx of mainland workers to ensure Hong Kong's laborers don't get squeezed out of a job. His diplomatic rounds included the police force, where he attempted to calm officers' fears about their future.
Former Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew has warned Hong Kong against antagonizing China if it wants to remain autonomous after 1997. Julie Mapleston reports.
In an interview with Asia Week magazine, Singapore's senior minister gave Hong Kong a stern warning about how to keep on the right side of Beijing. Concentrate on money making, concentrate on helping China earn money, and above all else, don't meddle in the politics of China. That's Lee Kuan Yew's advice. The comment comes in the middle of a storm over the Hong Kong Legislative Council's efforts to exercise its power, much to Beijing's chagrin. Beijing has made it clear it sees LegCo's attempts to adopt a standing committee system as a threat to the existing arrangements, while LegCo's rejection of the Sino-British deal reached on the Court of Final Appeal has also strained relations. China is also worried about members of the Alliance in Support of Democracy on the mainland sitting on Hong Kong's lawmaking body with the mandate of the people. That's cause for concern, according to Mr. Lee. He says how Hong Kong votes is its business, as long as it leaves China in no doubt that Hong Kong is no threat either politically or economically, they'll leave Hong Kong alone. Mr. Lee claims that the one country, two systems principle, which should guarantee Hong Kong a high degree of autonomy after 1997, offers no real protection. China only has to declare a state of emergency in a tricky situation to take matters into its own hands.
Members of the LegCo Finance Committee have accused the Financial Secretary of being unfair when he tried to recall absent members after a vote had been taken. Jenny Lam reports.
Members were asked to vote on whether they supported the setting up of finance subcommittees for various government departments.
Could you please indicate? These are against.
Confusion broke out when Peggy Lam decided to ask a question in the middle of the vote.
Mr. Chairman, yes? I would like to say a word here. Many members are outside. They don't know that we're having a vote, so this may not be fair to those who are outside the chamber.
The Chief Secretary, Sir David Ford, came under fire from Martin Lee when he chose to take on Mrs. Lam's suggestion.
May I challenge that? Because the vote has been taken already, and now halfway through a member asks you to change the method of voting or delay it.
I think it's a point of order which has been raised, and I think it's not unreasonable to recognize that point of order, even though the vote has been called.
I am taking a point of order now, because Mrs. Peggy Lam did not take a point of order. I'm taking a point of order to see whether this is right, because there's no such thing as a division bell. I mean, if members go out for a cup of tea, it's their business.
The Chief Secretary explained that the division bell was not used in the past to recall members because of the informal nature of committee meetings. In the end, the Liberals demanded that the confusion on the voting system to be put forward to the LegCo Deputy President. The paper was then withdrawn, and the Chief Secretary agreed to check with the Deputy President whether or not his move was a violation of the LegCo standing order.
The Hong Kong Electric Company will increase its rates by nearly 5% from the new year. This means the average consumers are to pay an extra $9 on their bills. Each unit is set to go up 3.5 cents. The average customer uses 250 units. They'll see their bill rise from $177 to $186. For 500 units, it'll go up from $351 to $369. And for those who use 1,000 units, their bill will go up $34. The change, which affects the company's nearly 500,000 customers on Hong Kong Island, comes into effect on the 1st of January. The other electricity supplier, China Light and Power, says it may put its prices up next year, but hasn't made a decision yet. A bomb set off by the IRA has injured 66 people in Northern Ireland. The bomb, which was planted in a van, destroyed a police station in the town of Craigavon in County Armagh. Police said it was a miracle there were no deaths in the explosion, which left a large crater, blew off windows and cut power supplies. Bonn expects the Soviet Union to extradite shortly the deposed leader of the former East Germany, Erich Honecker. Mr. Honecker fled to the Chilean embassy in Moscow on the eve of a deadline for him to leave Russia or be deported to Germany. Authorities in Bonn want him to face manslaughter charges. Today, Chile ruled out asylum for the former communist leader, but allowed him to stay as a guest in the embassy. Chile said it's up to Russian and Soviet officials to decide his fate. The deadline will expire a few hours from now. The Executive Council has given the go-ahead for work to start on a 10-kilometre expressway, which will link the new airport and the proposed Lantau fixed crossing. The expressway will form part of a network linking Chek Lap Kok with Kowloon and Hong Kong Island. Work on the site will start in May next year and should be finished in the middle of 1996, a year before the airport is due to be completed. It'll then take 30 minutes to travel between the airport and Hong Kong Island. KMB says bus passengers will be spared the brunt of a proposed increase in the Cross Harbour tunnel fee. And as Bernard Lowe reports, the bus company has another piece of good news for commuters.
The proposal to hike the tunnel fee was made at the beginning of the year, but inflation worries kept the Transport Department from pushing for the increase. It's still up for discussion, but if enacted, would double the tunnel fee to $20. Commuters on tunnel buses, however, can rest easy. Kowloon Motor Bus General Manager Charles Lui says because buses won't be subject to the new fee, the company has no plans to increase fares. Mr. Louis has other good news for KMB passengers. Its newest traffic frustration fighter, the Music Bus.
Prospective passengers here today agree. Any change from the usual natural sounds of Hong Kong, screeching brakes and loud conversations, has got to be a definite improvement.
This bus features the latest in CD and cassette technology, and with its multitude of speakers can drown out even the loudest arguments. Route 300 is making its maiden run from the Prince Edward MTR station to Central, and the company says if customers like it, there are more to come. The only question now is, what if the driver likes rap music?
Finally, the weather. We can expect a fine day tomorrow with temperatures reaching a high of 22 degrees. Well, that's all for now from the ATV News team. Good night.